Hey everybody, this is Perch. I want everyone to succeed, and whether I like the person personally or not. And in comics, I've met a ton of people. I mean, people to the point where I've actually tricked myself and forgotten how to pronounce her name over the years. And I generally speaking, there's people I find I like, there's people I find I don't like. But in many cases, this like and dislike comes from very random kind of things. I feel very confident. I mean, we've been on enough. I mean, Sean, I think, and I would have a great time going out drinking. Absolutely. I'm pretty sure Jeff Thorne and I would have a great time. Maybe not drinking. I don't think he drinks much, but we'd have a good time talking movies and other things. Brian Edward Hill's another guy. Just I know I'd get along real with. But I suspect. I mean, these are all very different personalities. And so, whether you like or dislike someone, I mean, I don't really get into. I say don't really. I've never got into people I dislike for kind of personal reasons because it's kind of irrelevant, and in many cases, it's not terribly useful. I've had a lot of people rub me the wrong way, and in many cases, it's kind of funny when I hear they've rubbed other people the wrong way. It's like, okay, it's not just me. But there's not a lot of value to it. I mean, I could certainly come on this channel and entertain everyone with a bunch of gossip of hey, this guy was a dick and did this. And I'm sure it'd be entertaining viewing, but it wouldn't be particularly useful to anyone. Because the reality is everyone has a bad day. Everyone has a personality type. And some personalities don't mesh. That's why, when people get married, they can't just, it's not just one random man, one random woman get together, get married. That just works. It's you got to find a personality fit. So that's how things go. But regardless of whether I like someone or dislike someone, and I was trying to kind of rack my brain, who's somebody that I dislike on a personal level that would be safe to kind of talk about? And I can't think of anyone where I just feel comfortable, rolling that out there. But so we're gonna go into example town. All right. So this is not a real example, but let's say I didn't like Sean. Let's say Sean Murphy. I just something about his personality. I didn't care for it. It didn't work for me. I would still want his comic to do well. I would still want it to sell. I would still want it to be marketed. I'd still want it to be positioned. I'd still want all of these things to happen for this comic. And I'd want that for two reasons. And believe it or not, I'm going somewhere with all this. I as a retailer, I benefit from the comic selling. It is in my best interest for that comic to sell. So I want it to do well. Um, yeah, and then emotionally, I guess I don't know if emotionally is the right word. As a fan of comics, I want comics to be healthy. And this is where I'm coming from, but this is where I think some of the fan community starts to diverge from that path. Comics have never made me so angry, so irritable, so frustrated, so pissed that I want to see it collapse. That I just at this point, the people have made me so mad that I actually want disaster. I want the thing to fall apart. And I know that other people have been pushed to that level. They have gotten themselves to that position. And this then becomes the great kind of, the battle divide, whatever you want to call it, with comics, because naturally, people who are still producing comics and people who are reading comics and enjoy them are not fond of the people who are just so angry at this point they want it to collapse. And so there's a lot of finger pointing, there's a lot of name calling, there's a lot of you're bad, no, you're bad kind of stuff that goes on. But and this is where if you have the tolerance and the patience for it, I think it's good to try and get to the bottom of why are people mad. It comes in different forms. Right now, for whatever reason, not for whatever reason, a chart is being shared around that shows that the top selling graphic novels are manga. And this has kind of been misinterpreted as a chart a little bit. For one, it did leave off a lot of US based content. Wasn't Marvel or DC. Frankly, I think it's a better argument to say, look, here's Dogman beating everything, but be that as it may. And it also it's graphic novels as opposed to floppy. So I mean, it often doesn't have the money attached to it. There's a bunch of ways that this chart is a little bit misleading, but, and it's a big but, there's no denying that manga is doing extremely well. It's having a good moment in culture, and it's not surprising why it's having a good moment. It's got the right connection between anime and between manga, meaning the movies are exposed, the shows are being exposed in more places. Funimation is having good growth. A lot of people signed up to that streaming service during the pandemic. We've seen different things at Netflix. Netflix has invested more into it, and they're marketing more of it. And so what's happened, and this is true, we know, is that the shows are coming out. People are watching them. Maybe one season comes out. There is this desire to go get comics, go get the manga, and people do, and so the manga then starts selling very well. And then there's this second bounce effect where people realize that the manga is far ahead of the anime, and so they start buying up later volumes because they want to know what's coming next. This is normal human behavior, but it's fascinating, and it's something definitely for comics to learn from. There's a major question here. Why is it that the people will watch the Falcon Winter Soldier and they will not be pushed to go buy the comics, but they will watch My Hero Academia and they will? Some people have speculated, well, that's because Falcon Winter Soldier sucks. No, that isn't the reason. Because the that show had a lot of views, and no, the majority of them were not hate views. They were people who were actually entertained. You saw a lot of speculation, but people didn't connect the dots to go buy those books. Why? Now, what we don't know, by the way, is if people did try and go buy those books and found that they couldn't, which is quite possible. But one kind of glaring huge thing that you have to accept is that anime to manga is having that effect. So why is it that that is working in a traditional sense and US comics aren't? That's weird. You could argue that manga has bigger hurdles because in many cases the books are being printed backwards. There's this whole hurdle of having to adopt some Japanese culture, and there's just a lot of pieces to this that I think make it unlikely. If you were, before all this happened, if you had the facts laid out in front of you, you would say manga has a lot more of an uphill battle to have this effect. So why is it more successful in terms of getting people to convert from the show to the book? There's a lot of reasons, and I'm sure some people speculate in the comments below. But what you're seeing right now, and which gets back to the do you want it to succeed, is a lot of people are pointing out this fact that manga is having a good moment. It is doing very, very well. And they are using it to beat comics over the head. They're using it to say, to see how much you suck, look, even manga is beating you badly. And in a lot of cases, a lot of the people who are saying this are not actually watching or reading the manga. They're what I'd say casual customers. Not all. Plenty of people are enjoying it, consuming it. But in many cases, it's people that are very excited about this fact, not because, hey, look, manga is growing and this is great and look at where things can go, but rather, look, this is another way that we get to punch comics. And so I become fascinated with this idea of how mad did you have to make people before they started actively wanting to root for your failure constantly? And there's all the stuff about ideology and the type of content and this and that and creator behavior and everything else. There's a huge bundle there of reasons that people can point to. But I want to kind of point out how really unusual this is. This is actually quite striking that you've got a group of people so pissed off that they will go to pretty extraordinary lengths to want to crap on it. Where the fascinating part is many people just disengage. This is when I talk customer behavior. If a book comes out and it's not interesting to you, or even if it offends you a little bit, the more common thing that happens is that people stop buying it. They disengage. And some of that is happening with comics, sure. But they tend to move on. They don't harbor this kind of ongoing hatred and anger to comics. It's very interesting that comics not only gets people to disengage, but also generates this very intense passion of anger against it. And that is kind of stunning. I mean, it is. There's been lots of moments. I mean, we'll put it this way. You look at sports. You can look at any kind of analogy, but you look at sports, and at various times, the different sports have done things that have angered the fan base. That have, somebody was previously an NFL watcher, and then they're not anymore. And people will complain, sure, but it's often the more common thing is that ratings go down, ticket sales go down. That is the more common approach. And especially you see this in kind of a home team kind of effect. If a team brings in the wrong people, has a bad season, any number of factors, the more common thing that happens is disengagement. You don't see fans of this football team just like randomly, attacking attacking it on a constant basis. You see some, but not like comics. Comics is amazing in that it has generated this anti-passion that is somewhat unique. Not completely, but somewhat unique. And what are we supposed to make of this? That's why I started at the beginning. There's certainly people that have irritated me, but I tend to, again, I disengage. I don't really talk about it. I kind of move on. But at the end of the day, I still want comics to succeed, even if the person making the comics is somebody I don't particularly like. We have hit this place where the field has so enraged people, so angered people, that they just want everything to burn down and start over. And I'm not exaggerating, by the way. You can look in the comments of videos I do which touches on this topic, and you will see a large number of people saying, burn it all down, it's got to end, I just want it to die, it's got to stop. And it's amazing. So the question I get becomes, number one, how did this happen? How did we get to this state? But number two, how in the world what do we do? When you get people to this very kind of unique position, how do you come back from that? Because it feels a little bit like comics is in this unusual position where there is a good portion of the audience that I don't know what it would take to actually recover from this. I'm not sure there is a recovery from this for that group of fans. If you've gotten so angry that you want it to die, it's not, there's not a turnaround point that is obvious here. So now, comics has talked about wanting to find this new audience, and they need to, we got to get this new audience. In many cases, they almost, they've entered a situation, whether intentional or unintentional, depending on who you talk to, you'll get different answers, but they've entered this situation where they have no choice now but to find that new audience. That new audience is critical because a portion of the old audience is never coming back. They have been pushed to their limit and they're done. So rather than, hey, normally when you're expanding your business, you're saying, we need to go find this new market. There's a lot of growth opportunity in this new market. The place you're in now is we have to go find this new market because the old market is attacking the castle with with swords. Like we have no choice. It's no longer new market for growth. It's new market for survival. And the challenge that I see is that a lot of the people who are making these decisions, who are kind of in comics, trying to figure out what to do, they are, they are kind of old. I won't say old-fashioned, but they're thinking about things the way they always have. So you've got people who know how to make comics for a market that is divorced themselves from comics. It's a hell of a thing. If you sit back and think about this problem, it's a hell of a problem. And it's one of those that I think manga this week really brought it home. This is no longer kind of an intellectual exercise about a handful of trolls. This is, you have enemies. Enemies is too strong a word, but you have people chomping for your market share. That is manga, it's YA, it's scholastic, it's digital, it's streaming media, it's all these other things. You've got these threats. Um, and your reliable fan base is become, not all of it again, but some of it has become another threat. It's become a threat of abandonment. And this is a backward model. If you've ever taken an MBA class, or maybe or you've gotten your MBA, or you've taken business classes, you may have encountered something called the SWAT: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And so it's a grid, and you basically, you put in, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are your opportunities, what are your threats. So your strengths right now of comics is just, you've been doing it for a while, you've got a built up fan base, you've got IP that's known, you have those strengths. Your weaknesses are, digital revolution, very strong competitors. The IP is maybe not as valuable as it once was. You aren't getting the natural crossover with the movies that other businesses are. Your opportunities are that people still desperately love a lot of what you do. People do want. I think it's funny. You've got to go out of your way to kind of get in between, Batman and your customer. Most customers want to love Batman and Spider-Man and Wolverine and the X-Men. They're predisposed to want to love these things. That's kind of your opportunity. You have that there. But your threats are massive at this point. You have built up a extreme amount of threats, internal and external. Your business model is all wrong. Your pricing is tough. Your distribution is broken. A segment of your customer base hates you. Your other mediums are attacking fiercely. Your social media is a drain on your time, energy, and you haven't figured out how to really market with it yet. I mean, I would, if I was an investor, so a venture capitalist investor, and I was looking at the SWOT analysis of comics. I mean, Jesus, the threats would be terrifying to me at this point. It's amazing to see this built up this way. So I started this video off in kind of a weird place, like why, me personally, again, only speaking for myself, even if I don't like someone, I still want the business to succeed. Now, it doesn't mean I necessarily want that person to do great. If somebody's a jerk, I always hope that, karma will come and have its way, but I want the business to succeed. And the unique thing I find is that increasingly, I think there's a growing group that we can't ignore anymore. If you're in comics, you can no longer kind of dismiss these people as just kind of goofy trolls on the outside. It's becoming a bigger and bigger threat. These are people who are so pissed off, they no longer want it to succeed at all. And that's an eye-popping, eye-opening, crazy place to be. But anyway, I covered a lot of stuff there, went all over the place. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is amazing. I mean, if you really wrap your head around it, it's pretty astounding to have, people actively rooting for your failure on this level. This is more unusual. This isn't like cheering against a football team. This is kind of really hoping against an entire business, and that's pretty nuts. And please bear in mind, I'm not talking about everybody. If you're upset with comics, I'm not putting everybody into the same bucket. There's definitely people who are upset with DC, do not want to see the entire world burn down. But then there are people who, self-admittedly, their words, not mine, want it all to explode, and that's surprising. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for listening.